Welcome to AZ Sports with Matt and Rich. Matt, you guys know as AZ Sports Guy. Me, Rich, I'm a nobody. Let's get right into this and just start recording this podcast.
You act like I'm not a nobody.
Well, you're somebody. I am a nobody. I guess we'll start with, if you're coming over from AZ Sports Guy and you're looking at me and going, who the hell am I? Great question. I don't know who I am in the first place, but I'm one of Matt's friends, and I'm a big sports fan, and I got the privilege and honor to be a co-host with Matt and start up this podcast.
Well, if you want your actual claim to fame, we met because you won a giveaway. I forgot what player that was, but it was an autographed poster.
Oh yeah, that's at my dad's house. I don't know where. It's probably on his desk. He was going to make like a collage with them all, and I don't think he ever did it. But it's in the stack somewhere.
I'm not gonna lie. I just want to thank you one last time for not murdering me, because that would have been no bueno. I wouldn't have cared for that.
Yeah, that's the risk of meeting people online and meeting up with them in real life. But luckily I didn't, and we're doing a podcast now. Let's hop into a couple subjects. So, as you guys can see, we are wearing hockey stuff. I figure let's hop right into the hockey talk. I know you had a couple of points you wanted to go down. Would you like to go over your first point?
Yeah, the first point I want to talk about is Karel Vejmelka. So the goaltending in general has been either ridiculously bad, Hutton and Prosvetov, unfortunately, for the couple of games he had, or borderline god tier with Karel Vejmelka, Scott Wedgwood, Thornton coming out of nowhere what is it? He was an undrafted rookie that earned an entry-level contract with the Coyotes that just got signed about a month ago. So let's talk about goaltending real quick and how this went from something that could have been really bad if Prosvetov did not pan out to Prosy could suck, and we're probably still going to be fine for at least the next couple of years.
For sure, and I definitely have to say, that just shows you how good Corey Schwab is at his job. How many careers has that man revitalized here in the desert? It is insane. And not to say that Vejmelka was had a failing career or anything like that, but he came out of nowhere. He was in a rookie camp for the Coyotes, and now he's got a 3-year contract, which is crazy, and that's big boy money, for a guy who came out of the Czech league, which I don't even know how much they get paid, but I'm assuming under $100,000, and now he's making a few stacks a year or something like that. It's like a $1.5 million contract.
I thought it was 2.75. I was gonna go 3 years, $9 million for Wedgwood. If I was the GM, just to overpay a bit to kind of help you save the salary for. But apparently, they actually just gave that to Vejmelka, just minus a little bit because I guess $3 million is too much for our boy Veggie.
Now, question: do you think the Wedgemeister comes back in the offseason?
I think probably. Look, as much as I'm big on Ivan Prosvetov, anyone who's been following me for any length of time knows I think he can be the goalie of the future. Taking a few steps back this year, but it happens with prospects in general, especially goalies. But if he does not take that step going into next training camp that I was assuming he would to kind of steal that backup job, you're going to need another NHL level goaltender. Wedgwood played well here both times, being claimed for free off of waivers, both times ending a terrible start to season. So you kind of need that. As you can call him a lightning rod, you can call him good luck, you can call him common sense, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to bring him back. But if Dallas also can find a way to be semi-competitive and make it into the playoffs, they also might want to extend him because their goaltending situation's also a thing.
Well, how many guys do they have under contract? That's the interesting thing to me that I look at. They've got Holtby, they've got Ottinger, and they've got the third guy. They have already quite a few guys under contract, and I'm wondering, now maybe they're up this season. I haven't gone in too much of a depth look about it, but it makes me wonder if they just don't have the spot for him. Right now they do because of injuries, but if the spot's not there, he could end up having to walk again. And with just how great of a personality he is, you need that around an organization right now that's going to be going through a couple tough years. You're going to be at a small arena, which I do think will be fun, but we don't know how that's going to look after year 3. You could kind of get tired of it as a player being like, oh, haha, we're the butt end of the joke. Every on ice, altercation or spat is, oh, look at where you play, blah, 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 blah. After 3 years of that, you kind of might get tired of it. So you need good personalities to keep the locker room settled and, stable, that you're not just a train wreck emotionally. So I definitely think that he can provide that. He seems pretty battle hardened, I guess is the best way to explain it, after the career that he's had to go through with being a waiver pickup, 4 or 5 times, I think.
For different teams, yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely a guy that you'd want to kind of keep around in your locker room.
Yeah, I think that especially I kind of feel for him a little bit because at least from the way he was talking or the way it was kind of being reported on that he was talking, that he wanted to have some sort of stability. And I know Galchenyuk, he kept his house here. He always loved it here. He said he wanted to come back here. There's always a possibility in a couple of years for maybe Dvorak might want to come back. He kept his house here. So there's plenty of guys that like Arizona, like the market, like the weather, that would like this to be their stable home. I would not be surprised if Wedgwood, even if he was a little bit bitter about it, which obviously I would understand, but he said, hockey is a business. I wouldn't be surprised if his agent was taking calls, or if they already had some sort of under the counter agreement, kind of like with Vermette, where, we're going to go let you compete, then just come back to us next offseason. We'll give you some money.
Yeah, and Vermette was able to win a cup, and if my memory serves me, with Chicago, he was able to put up 3 game-winning goals or something like that. That's the thing, is you never know. And Wedgwood could be that guy where, if Ottinger struggles and all of a sudden they're like, oh crap, and they go with Wedgwood, he could win a couple rounds or even a cup. I mean, it's not too far-fetched to say that Dallas was in the finals, 2 years ago against Tampa Bay's first cup. Yeah, because they won.
That was their Mickey Mouse Cup.
Their Mickey Mouse Cup, yeah.
As they were calling.
Yeah. So I'd like to hop into another topic here.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, sorry, you were cutting out there for a second.
Oh, I was just gonna basically say that with Dallas's goaltending situation, I think Bishop's up at the end of the year because his career is done. Hudobin's also up at the end of the year. You have no idea what's going to go on with Holtby because they might not want another older, injury-prone goaltender. Ottinger's probably going to take the reins of that starting job if, again, he maintains the form of what he's been doing. So it's still a possibility they might want to keep him, but I think that there's still a really good chance he ends up coming back to Arizona.
Okay, for sure. And so let's hop into another subject here. I want to talk about the non-trade, the big fish in Arizona, as we talk about, and that is Senior Jakob Chychrun. Do you think it was the right call to wait on a trade at the deadline for him?
I have 2 perspectives on this. As if we're talking about purely if that hypothetical, ridiculous Florida offer was on the table, no. But since that hypothetical, ridiculous Florida offer was very likely not on the table, I think it's actually a really smart decision, primarily because he can get a couple more games in, get a little more healthy, and especially, you got contracts coming off the books, people are going to have more assets. Right there at the draft, that's when you're planning your next steps, and Chychrun is still a guy you can build around. I have reservations primarily because of the 2 knee surgeries and how he's never played more than, I think it's 63 games in a season. His only full season was that shortened 56-game season last year. So I have enough concerns where I'm like, if you can get that haul, do it. But I think it's probably the smartest option to wait to the draft because they're going to have more teams that might actually have the space, have the extra contracts, have the assets, start a bidding war, and you just might actually get that hypothetical, totally on the table Anton Lundell deal.
Well, hey, if Florida wins a cup, right? Let's say they win that cup. Do they look at bringing the hometown kid home, Boca Raton native, right? Bring him home and all you're giving up is, a finished prospect that was playing on your third line. As we saw at this deadline, they were able to pick up those third line assets for pretty good deals. And, you look at it and you go, oh man, he's the future. He's a future Barkov. You have a Barkov right now. Like, where's he going to sit? Is he just going to sit on your third line for 5 or 6 years? No. So it kind of makes sense. And they desperately need, not desperately, but, having a left-handed defenseman for them is a good option. Like, it's not just like let me cram him in on the, in their lineup. It's, no, he could absolutely play in, top line minutes in Florida. So it makes a lot of sense to me that could be a potential future. Another thing I wanted to reiterate on was with that knee injury, it wasn't just two knee surgeries on the same knee. It was a knee surgery on each knee. So that is scary for me. And I've heard a lot of people say, sports medicine has come a long way. He was young when it happened. But for every inkling that I've seen, like, knee injuries, reduce the likelihood of you having a long and prosperous career. We see that with just so many, even just, other sports and stuff like that. You see that there's a knee injury and some guys just come back and they're not the same. Luckily, he's been okay the past 9 games before he got injured again. That could be because of a difference from, coaching and stuff like that. Maybe disgruntledness, because we do know that he was had a very large friendship with Christian Dvorak. And when Christian Dvorak was left in the offseason from that trade, that could have really messed with him morally speaking.
Well, on top of that, if you notice, that was kind of around when the Chikrin's no longer untouchable rumor started happening, which at the time I dismissed, but also said there's a possibility, because that Instagram post where he was clearly publicly upset about the trade, that could have started some sort of rift. You could have the guy saying, look, I don't want to spend these specific years of my career playing for this team. I don't really listen to what certain pundits, like, for example, John Gambadoro, say, but when even someone like him saying he doesn't think Chikrin wants to be here, I think there might... You can't have that much smoke and no fire whatsoever. So it just, you look at a lot of that, you look at just how sluggish he was to start this season. That one run before he got re-injured, he was playing borderline phenomenal, almost exactly like he was the previous season. I don't know if it was just gearing up for the deadline. A lot of guys do that. I don't know if it was just him finally hitting that stride, but with Chikrin, that could have started something, and especially with those knee injuries. Look, even if he could have a long and prosperous career, those knee injuries could be the difference in the long term between him being a career, top pairing defenseman and fitting in somewhere on the second and third pairing, not being as explosive. And when that contract's up, especially because of the Carlson and Doughty contracts, I don't necessarily want to be paying if you're seeing what you're seeing right now. I don't necessarily want to have a $10 million a year contract on the books for Chikrin. So if you can sell high, and to just be specific about what I was talking about, the specific rumor was Spencer Knight, Anton Lundell, and 2 firsts, which is ridiculous, and I wouldn't have given that a second thought if that was a real offer. I would have said, you can have them and like half of our equipment. You can have some Arby's gift cards or something. Just thank you. Thank you for a top goaltending prospect at a future center.
And just to point out there, with Florida, they are a very big contender. Those firsts are not nearly as valued as somebody who's more rebuilding. I want to point that out because I think a lot of people miss that. If Florida is, their first round picks 28 plus in multiple drafts, it's not nearly as valuable as a top 15 first round pick. So, keep that in mind before everybody goes 2 firsts. What? Like, that's crazy. Well, now we can look at the Tampa deal with Brandon Hagel, and they got 2 firsts out of that one. Now, that was an amazing cap. That's why they did it. They had to for, cap control. But at the same deal, Chikrin's on a pretty good cap. If he's a Norris caliber D-man on a pretty good cap, Now we see whether that 2 first pick, uh, could be in the equation. I don't know how I feel about it. I love Chick, but if we see him go at the draft and we see him maybe go to a team, I think like LA, and maybe get a high pick from them and maybe like a Turcotte. I don't think we're going to get a Brant Clark, but if Brant Clark's name is thrown out there, that's a real nice asset. Overall, I think something does happen at the deadline. I think something happens.
Yeah, I would be surprised if at the very least after the draft there wasn't some sort of this deal almost happened. Like I would actually be genuinely shocked if there wasn't something along those lines. So yeah, now that we're talking about the deals that didn't happen, I want your opinion on the man, the myth, the Burgermeister himself, Phil Kessel. What are your thoughts on that? And there was a lot of, well, I don't want to say a lot of, there was a surprising amount of online fan controversy about taking on that dead money for Johan Larsson to get the higher asset, the third round pick, instead of trading Kessel. Or in
Yeah.
my opinion, there just wasn't that market. He's still setting up guys, sure, whatever, but the goal
Yep.
scoring has gone down so much to where no one really wanted that asset.
So I think what gets missed in this topic, everybody talks about, oh, how can you do that to Phil Kessel? He deserves another cup run, blah, blah, blah. I don't disagree. He is a veteran. He does deserve to be on another team. But we don't look at the other side of this, which is Johan Larsson. Johan Larsson has played on some kind of crap teams, and he's finally getting the ability to go and play for a contender. How's it fair to say, oh, Phil Kessel deserves better and just screw Johan Larsson? Like, Johan Larsson's going to a legitimate, threat in Washington. And the big thing was, we always said, hey, you can get Phil Kessel right now for a second. Halfway through the season, hey, you can get Phil Kessel now for a third, right? His play didn't help that. Obviously, not scoring goals, being a sniper, definitely hurts your what you can get traded for. But ultimately, they were always looking for a third, at least from my point of view. They were always at least looking for a third for retaining on that cap. They found the third for retaining on the cap. They did exactly what they were trying to do. Yeah, it sucks that Phil didn't get moved, but at the same time, everybody knew he was available all season. Everybody knew that they were willing to retain 50% all season. Nothing happened. And we saw that call come out pretty late at the deadline for Johan Larsson. I'm assuming nobody entertained the thought, and Bill Armstrong went, well, crap, I got to do something with that retainment slot. So he retained on Johan Larsson. I don't think it was like Nashville was calling, but, the retainment slot was filled, so they were screwed. I'm assuming he was talking very depth with everybody and was like, hey, if you want this retainment slot, you need to do it soon, or else I'm making this trade with Washington. Nobody entertained the thought, so he pulled the trigger on the deal with Johan Larsson.
I think if anything, that just shows how good of a GM that Armstrong is. Because when you're looking at, I completely agree there. We've known pretty much. I'm assuming these trade talks had to have started at least in the offseason. But when it came out towards the start of the season that Kessel actually requested a trade before the previous season, so this has to have been talked about for quite some time to get Kessel out of here. And then if you look at that, no one's really biting, no one's biting. You could still at least get a third round pick and move on from Larsson, who, let's be honest here, good player. We don't really have a use for him. Right now, it's much more valuable to have a young, center get that ice time, because that's how you develop your players, you develop your talent. It's one thing we never really did under Chaika and Tocchet, just a little bit of venting there. But if you're going to make a quick move right there, it's, hey, this isn't going to work out. And as he said throughout the entire season, multiple interviews on the radio and just in different aspects, Armstrong's always said they're not going to force a deal where it doesn't make sense. And the way I see it now is now I got something to look forward to for the summer, because then the Kessel jerseys get cheap and I'll get a couple more jerseys because I have a spending problem.
True. Very true. Yeah, I think it was good all around. It sucks to not get Kessel on a playoff team, but at the end of the day, that retainment slot was for a third at least, and GMBA did exactly what he did. He got a third for it. Sorry, that's business. You don't just get to complain and go to a playoff team and for nothing. You still want something. There's a reason why we paid a second for Mcbain. Oh, we could have waited until the offseason when he became a free agent. No, you do the right thing. Hey, Minnesota, we're going to pay you a second for us to try to get the rights to sign this guy. It's doing proper business. And, it's funny because we see a lot of like the Coyotes are shady off business. They don't pay people. It's like, okay, but in sports, they've been, doing the right thing in that sense of trying to acquire assets and not be super shady about getting those assets.
I actually really want to talk about Mcbain. That's actually a pretty good little segue. See what you did there. What GMBA did right there is they did the hard work, throughout the offseason, throughout the season, trying to gain those assets. And one thing that it's I guess it's the best mirage in all of sports is how valuable assets are, draft picks and whatnot, and if you can turn them into players right now. Because sometimes you get, let's just say, Anthony Beauvilliers, and you get other guys, Connor Garland's later in drafts or in second rounds. Sometimes you end up getting nobody, or you get Brandon Gormley and Mark Byzantine with first round picks.
Brendan Pierlini.
Right there, you have a young kid. Oh my God, Perlini could have been so good. I'll leave it in the past. I'll just leave it in the past. But right there, it's, hey, we had these second round picks. This is the worst of our second round picks that we're going to be moving on from. This guy, Jack Mcbain, he does not want to sign with Minnesota because of how much he's going to have to compete for ice time, which wouldn't be beneficial for him in the long run. So if you're looking at that just from his business perspective, he wants the maximum amount of opportunity so he can make money, obviously. So that kid's going to be motivated coming in the next year. I would hope that after 50 or so games, if it works out, you extend him between 3 and 5 years, whatever that cap hit would be. But Right there, hey, this kid, he's ready to play now. He's playing well at the college level. I don't remember if he was the one that played at the Olympics or not. I think him and Smith both did, but I'll have to fact check that.
I don't know about
this
Smith,
kid's
but
playing
he
well right
definitely
now. So it's like this kid's playing well right now. This second round pick could be nothing. It could be a Connor Garland type player. It could be Mark Byzantine. So you get that guy right now because Minnesota wanted to, obviously to retain him. You had, I think it was Montreal that was in on that. The Coyotes outbid Montreal, the good old Canadian boys. They outbid the state of hockey. All right, look, you could say whatever you want about the Coyotes. They at the very least did smart business, managed that asset properly, and at the very least, let's say Mcbain straight up says, I don't want to be here after around the deadline. That's still going to be a talented player. You could still probably flip for at least another second round pick and say, we tried, and you just neutral on your asset, worst case scenarios. I think that was also really smart thinking on the part of GMBA, being like, hey, we need more center depth. We need more young, talented players. This kid's probably going to be ready next year. Let's do it. Let's get it done.
Yeah, and I definitely think that giving the worst of your seconds is really awesome. And then on top of that, I think Montreal. Let me go check real quick. Okay, so Montreal has a conditional second with the Oilers. I don't know if that's able to be flipped, but it was either give up Montreal's second or give up. I don't even remember what second we gave to them. It was the worst.
It was the one we got in that OEL trade.
Okay, yeah, that's right. And so I'm assuming that Montreal wasn't willing to give up their pick because it could be 34, right? And that is something that they were probably unwilling to digest with. But I want to say, I don't think that it wasn't a case of them not willing to part ways with it, because we had an interview on, I think it was AZ Sports, not AZ Sports, Bally Sports. It was either there or maybe it was the Coyotes themselves that did it, but he was interviewed and he was talking about how he actually went two places and then contacted his agent, said, yeah, I want to be here. So that has me thinking he probably went to Montreal. He probably went there and went, this is what I'm looking at, and then he came here and saw all the opportunity that he had in Arizona, all the future assets that we're going to have in next year's, this upcoming draft with, was it now 7 assets in the first 2 rounds?
It's ridiculous. And also we have some solid assets in the next draft too, I think 2023. They got some assets. They own the second round for like the next 2 years. It belongs to Arizona.
Yeah, and Bill Armstrong even was even talked about it in that interview where he said, hey, look, we don't have a building. It's not going to be pretty, right, to play here for right now, but the future is bright. And for everybody, all you Canadian people, if you're listening, Tempe is booming. Okay? They're putting billion-dollar project along the Tempe River, or whatever you call it, the Tempe Lake. Okay?
It's Tempe Town Lake.
This is a massive asset. Okay? That's the reason why Arizona is not going to lose their hockey team. Unless it is, no, this we can't put a building here. We can't put a building here. We can't put a building here. You're only playing a college arena. Then they'll get moved to Houston. Only then. Okay? I know that I'm sorry here. I'm spunked up because I've had to battle with so many Canadians about this. We have the biggest market that is booming right now. It is insane. TSMC, which is the Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturing plant, is building a mile-by-mile plant here in Arizona. It's up next to Lake Pleasant. I got to see it. They have like 21 cranes working on that project. It is a massive project. You're going to be seeing more and more businesses fleeing out of California and coming to Arizona because tax reasons, it's a lot better here. You are going to have so many assets here in Arizona to make a profitable team, to have people who have 6-figure incomes to go regularly spend on, a sports team. It is booming. And because of the woes from 2007 when the stock market crashed, this team has been in purgatory since then, essentially. And they're finally pushing that sludge out and making their way there. And I'm seeing nothing but good things.
Well, I mean, it's been. I think it's funny you use the term sludge because it ain't pretty coming out. Because when something is filled with sludge, you're pushing sludge out. So it's of course going to look bad on the way out. But I think I really couldn't have said that better myself. I'm not sure how much. I'm 99% sure all this is publicly available. But I did get this from sources that are people that directly involved with this stuff. If you look at any of those big, nice office buildings that are surrounding ASU, their facilities, their I don't know why I
complexes,
just forgot the football stadium's name. Complexes and Sun Devil Stadium. I don't know why I forgot that. I apologize, but all of that land owned by ASU. Businesses have paid ASU to put those buildings up. All right. One that I know of is that State Farm building. They paid for construction. They're paying ASU to be there, and ASU's gonna own it. They already do. But if State Farm leaves, ASU just either converts it to something else or lets someone else move in. Especially with the Coyotes paying up front and getting into bed with ASU, I can tell you right now that is the equivalent. All right, that is the equivalent of getting a nice, fancy relationship with the casinos out in Vegas. That is how important that is, and that should be enough to sway the Tempe City Council, but as a lot of people don't know, and I actually got to inform Urinating Tree about this in his comment section, the land directly next to where they want to build, I want to say it's the Salt River Indian Community. I always need to double check that. It's never do. But they own that land. That's a very viable bit of land the Coyotes could still buy, and that's also a current bargaining chip from every report that I've read, seen, or just I have a logical brain that can say you would use that. Okay, well, you're going to get the traffic anyway. Do you want the profit that goes along with it, i.e. putting it in Tempe city limits, or is that all going to our nice friends at the Salt River Indian Community? Which, in my opinion, especially if they agree to pay more on the... I forgot what the term is called, but it's converting that land now to make it usable. If they agree to pay more of that, remediating. Thank you. The
Mhm.
remediation costs they agree to pay. I think it's another 30 or 40 million to make all
Yeah.
of that Coyotes funded. I don't see the city of Tempe saying no unless there's like a massive scandal that involves like degeneracy in children, which I don't think there is with this organization as bad as things have been. So you have to like mold it in order to really push the agenda that this has no chance of going through. This is such a realistic possibility, and I guess fine. I'll give Houston your bone, all right? Because a lot of businesses are, like you just said, fleeing California mainly because a lot of the taxes and a lot of how just expensive it is to operate there. And they're going to Phoenix, they're going to Houston. Houston recently overpassed Phoenix as the fourth largest city in the country. We
Mhm.
still have 1.6 million people, which is a little over a million more than the entire population of Quebec. Of course, assuming the numbers that someone in another comment section today gave me that's from Canada. So I'm like, what market do you want? The market
Eh,
they're already here that is expanding in a very economically viable part of the state that is booming because that's where a lot of empty land was. It's already a college town. You have Mill Ave, everything that's been there forever essentially at this point. Where are you gonna go? There, or do you want to share a building with a basketball team? And how well did that work out for the Coyotes in America West?
Yeah, and another thing that I see from Canadians is, oh, why didn't they just go to the Footprint Center, which is America West that you were talking about? Why don't they
Hmm?
just go to the Footprint Center? It is not viable. You do not know what you're talking about. Like,
The
if
sight
you
lines are
think
bad, and
if
they redid it.
yeah, if you think that being in a lower bowl stadium is bad, you're not going to be able to sell like half the tickets in the upper bowl. Even if you were able to somehow convince the Suns owner to play in there, the upper bowl, you literally cannot see the defensive zone depending on which side you're sitting on. Like, you cannot. It is literally like blue line, the stanchion of the upper bowl. You cannot see the bottom part. So, like, it is not viable to be there. I don't even know if they have the ice equipment to be there. So there's that too. They may have
I've
just
heard
got.
conflicting reports. Craig Morgan said they completely removed it, but Disney on Ice still operates there. So I don't know if it was completely removed or if they just kind of scaled back on functionality. But honestly, in my opinion, it would be better to just go to the Veterans Memorial Coliseum, the Madhouse on McDowell. And even then, me and my brother-in-law were joking that I want all these nice drunk Canadians getting stabbed on their way out. So it's probably just better to go to Tempe and play for 5,000 people. Also,
Yeah,
because they use an ammonia-based system, they'd have to redo that anyway. Just put that money towards being in Tempe and just schmooze up the people that own everything over there.
yeah, for sure. And the Disney on Ice thing, I want to point out, you
Hmm?
can have ice inside a building as long as there is no sun uh, overlapping it, and as long as you keep the building cold. I think you can have ice in temperatures upwards to 70 degrees as long as there's no sun on it before it'll start melting. So yeah, something interesting about that. That's why the reason I know this is because that's why the Coyotes have been pushing so hard to try to get an outdoor game because in the right conditions, we can actually support ice here in Arizona for an outdoor game. You can put it in the ballpark stadium and have everything closed up, and you'll be able to at least host it for 6 hours or whatever before the ice will eventually start to give way.
I'm so glad you said that. I need to cut you off right here. I do apologize, but I actually made a tweet about that because borderline the exact same information, except for with a little more flair because Donor knows a lot more than both of
Mm-hmm.
us. But he actually explained how that process works and how he would go to different places and basically say if they were viable or not for an outdoor game. And he explained on the I think it was the not Burns game, but it was Bickley and Murata that in a Chase Field, very realistically, they could have an outdoor game in Arizona. I want to say he also mentioned Sedona, but I don't know where you'd actually put
Yeah,
stands to have people up there. But he
yeah,
did say, for some reason, he brought up humidity. I always saw Arizona as a dry heat. I know it does get humid certain times, but he brought up humidity. He brought up, you can have the sun on the ice, but it just depends on how long and also the temperature and how cold you can keep the actual ice surface. And he got way more technical with it, but yeah, he basically confirmed Arizona, despite what people might think, which I've heard dumb takes like one YouTube channel saying Arizona having the worst ice surface makes sense because they're in the desert. I've
Yeah.
heard that is an actual legit brain
Yeah.
dead take I have heard, where I'm like, you do know it's inside of a building, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. However,
It's a building made in 2003. It's gonna get bad. Go to the Joe, or sorry, not the Joe. The was SAP Arena or
for
whatever.
San
The
Jose,
San
SAP
Jose one.
Center.
It's awful because it's old. The building is old. The Arizona, where they play currently in Gila River Arena, it's an older building. It is below the list of buildings that have been remodeled. It was made in 2003. Okay? This is why the ice surface is not very good. We had pipes literally burst at concerts because the arena is old. Like,
But even then, it's also still inside. You can still control temperature, unlike an outdoor venue. So it's like, even at the absolute worst case scenario, that takes brain dead on different levels, because it's like, it's not sitting in the sun out there in the middle of like the Tempe, or sorry, the Tucson to Phoenix wasteland over there on the 10. It's not just sitting over there, just like getting beat up by the sun. So I'm like, I've heard some of the dumbest takes, and I really appreciate that context you gave on top of that, because age of buildings does factor into that, and it can lower the quality of the ice surface. But I'm just saying, it's also they act as if, because we're in the desert, everything is just outside in the heat, as if we aren't innovating different ways to put people inside of doors and windows and air conditioning everywhere.
Yeah, seriously. All right, I'm gonna get us back on
degrees.
I'm gonna get us back on topic here. Enough complaining about the arena situation stuff. So let's finish up with taking on dead contracts. Do you think that this should be allowed?
All right. I don't want to just shoot out hot takes. I feel like that's not very productive, but I feel like grabbing that extra contract, I feel like LTIR as a whole, something like that, should only be reserved for guys that aren't going to play for, at least to me, 60 plus games. Like, they're not going to play the majority of the season. So it's like, that contract still being there, still on the books, getting passed around. I'm like, I feel like that should be allowed. The better conversation should be, should LTIR be allowed to exist the way it is, where guys miss, I think it's 2 months, or it's supposed to be at least a month plus, and they go on LTIR.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it should just be reworked to, it should be a minimum of like 55 games you're going to miss, or like 70% of the season, or whatever the math adds up to. Because I feel like LTIR as a concept is fine if it's literally, we sign this guy, all right, he's injured, we're not going to get to use him whatsoever, you can go replace him, but not, hey, this guy's injured for a month, I want to replace him for the rest of the year. I find that concept to be really stupid, and I also feel like there should be like separate tiers of buyouts, where if a guy's on LTIR, like his career is done, take a guy like, I think Brian Little, his contract, he's done. Or was it Boland? Was that the last one we picked up? Him or Datsuk? We had a couple of those guys.
Yeah. We had Datsuk, Pronger, Hossa, Boland. Those were some of the big names. Unfortunately, Brian Little will never play for the Coyotes. He took a puck to the head and unfortunately suffered a concussion, and I think something having to do with his ear. He had to have a surgery for.
Was it kind of like Kurt Sauer? I forgot. He had a head injury, and I don't remember how it was described, because I was a big fan of his, and my dad, kind of knew him personally. I got to talk to him a good handful of times. It was something like his inner ear, and it messed with his balance. It messed with kind of how, like, your hand-eye coordination. I think is it a very similar concept?
I think so. Don't quote me on this, but I think so. I think he had something to do with his entire eardrum had separated, and he had to get surgery for it. Anyways, let's not keep on the grim subject here. Sorry, Brian Little, for your situation. You are an awesome hockey player. I loved watching you, and congratulations on being a Coyote alumni.
I need to do a video to just plug my channel, because I guess I'm doing that now. I need to do a video about the all-time Coyotes legends that, like, we need to make a team and see how good they could have been. That they never played a game. I'm talking Datsuk, I'm talking Pronger, I'm talking Bullet, all these guys, and just see like what kind of team we can make up.
That would be funny. So the reason I bring this up is because we see it over, a few hundred miles away in Vegas. They're essentially circumventing the cap by putting people in LTIR. I disagree with a lot of people. I think a lot of people go, "Oh, that's BS for doing that." The reason I disagree is because I'd be a hypocrite to say otherwise. As a Coyotes fan, I think that taking on LTIR caps to hit the cap floor is a good thing for an organization. One, because you get garbage contracts off of good teams, which makes them even better. It's all about recycling, right? When you're in a hard cap league like this, you have to recycle. It is what it is. I do think that you can eventually see better models. People have thrown out there the baseball model, the luxury tax. I don't like that. As we saw with the very more controversial tweets coming out like a week ago, the Dodgers are paying like $230 million for their organization. The Baltimore Orioles are paying $20 million. You know, that is insane. The difference is literally 10x. That cannot happen. You need teams to be competitive. I could see something like basketball where if they were drafted to your team, you can pay extra to keep them onto your team and go over the cap because you drafted them. I like that model. I think that makes a lot of sense. For all the crybaby Leaf fans out there, it would allow them to go over the cap because you know they will. That'll allow Marner, Matthews, Nylander, that allow them to go over that cap and allow them to get better talent on their teams. As for where we are currently in today's league, I think that the stealing people's players that are never going to return and putting them on bad teams for assets, I think it's good for the bad teams because they get assets that can turn into something serious. To speak about the Brian Little deal, we got a player named Nathan Smith who's playing out of Minnesota State, I believe, who their team just hit the Final Four yesterday. And Nathan Smith had the only goal in that game. It was a 1-0 win, and he picked up the garbage in front off of a rebound and scored it. These assets you would never see on Arizona if it wasn't for cannibalizing bad deals. It is what it is. It's an ugly side of the business where there's some scumminess there, like we saw with Tampa a couple years back. Nikita Kucherov conveniently, is off of LTIR the second they make the playoffs. But, it is what it is.
But even then, I feel like both of our points of view were represented there in a way that wouldn't be contradictory whatsoever, because what you're talking about is those contracts are still around. They were still signed. Guys still got to get paid. Those are also guys that are not going to play again. So that wouldn't kind of write how I defined it. Whereas however you want to call it, all right, whatever, colorful term you want to use for it, but when it's a guy is going to miss a month, or that thing with Nikita Kucherov where pretty much you knew he was healthy for at least the last, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks, but because you couldn't go over the cap throughout the regular season, you had to wait until the playoffs. It's still one of those things where if a guy can play, they should be back on your lineup, and then another contract should just be terminated, because that's the actual penalty when you go over the cap, is that contract that caused you to go over the cap can be terminated by the league, just doesn't exist anymore. So it's like I feel like that should be that happy medium of LTIR should exist for guys that aren't going, like actually not going to play, not guys that are going to conveniently come back in time for the playoffs, not guys that are going to miss a month, but guys that are done.
I agree with you completely, actually, with that. I think that LTIR should be redone in a sense that it is for players who are long-term. We're talking out for the season. It doesn't have to be your Brian Littles. It can be Dmitry Ashkin here on the Coyotes. Sustained an injury like nine games into the season, not coming back till next year, right?
Connor Timmins, exact same thing. He had, 4 games or 5 games, and was it a knee injury? Out for the year? Just immediately?
Yeah, I think there should be like an injured reserve, right? That'll kind of free up your cap space. But then once they get assessed, if your timeline's within the Stanley Cup window, like it cannot be put on LTIR. If your timeline's past the Stanley Cup window, then you can go to LTIR.
Basically, it comes down to any basic argument. You can talk about politics, you can talk about sports. Logically looking at a situation and saying, hey, here are these nice loopholes right here. Let's just close that up because this is what this rule is supposed to be for. So I think it's common sense. The only people that are really against it are the people that they can benefit from it. I have a specific saying when it comes to, let's say, the slippery slope fallacy. Those who call something a slippery slope fallacy have something to gain by calling it that. So it's the same thing if you just translate that to sports and the LTIR. Oh well, it's just fine the way it is. You gotta be able to replace that player, right? So that way you have a team that's like 20 million over the cap when you hit the playoffs and everyone's healthy and fine. And
Yep.
if you couldn't ice them in the regular season, what's the logic behind icing them in the playoffs? How does that actually make logical sense?
Yep. For sure. I say we'll move on to something else here. I think that's pretty much the most of the deals that we have for Arizona. Little small ones there. We moved. What's that guy who we picked up off of waivers? Nash. Riley Nash. We moved him back to Tampa. He was originally waived by Tampa. They get to go back. Remember, this organization hates people and hates being terrible, but we are nice enough to literally send a guy back to his original team that he left, for him to pursue a Stanley Cup. But, our team's terrible. How dare us do homie hookups.
Let's
Right?
talk about the salt real quick. I guess before I move on, I have to talk about that Toronto salt with
Oh,
it
okay.
was Sateri, the
Harry
waiver claim.
Sateri. Yep. What a
So this
great
is an
name.
actual great day. This is an actual like no cap, no meme thing I saw on Twitter. Someone was mad and saying Arizona does not deserve a team because they took Sateri just basically to mess with Toronto instead of Mrazek because well they're trying to be bad anyway, right? So just take Mrazek. I'm like, so what you're saying is your team signed a bad contract. Another
Mhm.
team did not want to take on that contract for nothing, but they should be forced to take on that contract so your team can benefit. It's
Hey,
I found it funny.
hey, Arizona loves taking on bad contracts. If you want to give us a second round pick, we'll take it on. But
Give me Michael Bunting back. I'll take Mrazek. I want Michael Bunting back.
hey, I will say it is sad to see him go, but he served his time, diligently down the A, and there's the reason that rule exists because if contracts just constantly slid and slid and slid, they would never be able to make the NHL and do what Bunting's doing. So I'm super happy to see what he's doing. Um, uh,
Yeah, seriously, you can't take anything away from him. That's just yeah, it. He did his time.
yeah, he did his time. He's allowed to go out on parole now and be free of the Arizona shackles. But hey, if his buddy Austin Matthews comes to town, maybe he'll join up with him. I know that's going to piss off some Canadians. Back to the Harry Sateri stuff real quick. Elliot Friedman, I believe, posted on 32 Thoughts, or maybe it was the podcast 32 Thoughts podcast, saying that 4 to 5 people had put in claims on Harry Sateri. Before all the Toronto fans go, oh, they're just doing it to mess with us, Harry Sateri was in the Olympics. Where do you think your GM saw Harry Sateri? The Olympics. Do you think other GMs weren't watching the Olympics and watching him win a gold medal? No.
The one goal
Anybody in
against average.
yeah, like anybody in their right mind would go, "Oh yeah, I'll pick him up for free if I'm Minnesota trying to, make the playoffs." Obviously now they have they have Fleury, but beforehand, or if you're Nashville or whatever, like, oh, I'll pick up this free guy that may or may not play for us, like, of course. And just to say, oh, Arizona bad because they did it. Remember, we traded away Scott Wedgwood. We have to insulate our players. Just to put in consideration, Yosef Kozhinash is our backup right now because we don't want Prosvetov to come up to the NHL. We want him to stay in the A and get his time, get his experience in down there, even if the Roadrunners are not a great team this year.
Honestly, I know this might just be one of those things where I'm super attached to Prosy. I would have loved him to get like a 10-game stretch to end this season. You see it all the time with forwards. You see it with like Clayton Keller, Peter Mueller, all those guys at the very end of what would be like their pre-rookie season, like get a little bit of a stretch. I would just like a pressure-free, 10 games or so for Prosy to come up and get a shot, just because I kind of feel like he's gonna turn into an Aiden Hill, where his numbers after that rookie year are just never going to be good at the AHL level, but they come to the NHL and you give them some time, I think they'll be much better. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm also kind of a hopeless optimist when it comes to Kyle Kabienko and Ivan Prosvetov especially.
Yeah, and once again, going back to the Corey Schwab thing, right? We saw that with Hill. Down in the AHL, okay numbers, not great. Came up to the NHL, did a lot better. That is the Corey Schwab effect. That is just the Corey Schwab effect. He's a great goalie coach, and being a big goalie like Aiden Hill was, that is. It doesn't matter how good you are, as long as you're big in the NHL, you'll be able to make it. And as long as you've got good positioning. That's what happens with Vejmelka as well. Vejmelka, big goalie. Nobody name, you're like, meh, free agent pickup, whatever. And he's now a 3-year, he now has a 3-year contract because of learning positioning and how important it is to the position, thanks to Corey Schwab.
Basically, eat your veggies, kid.
Eat your veggies.
Eat your veggies.
Yes. The Vegmeister definitely is eating all the veggies, especially with that 3-year contract.
3
all
years,
right.
2.75, whatever it is.
Anything else hockey related that you want to talk about?
Oh, I can go on for days. I want to, I want Josh Stone to get a game this year. I would have loved, even though I know it's a little unrealistic, because I think it's Colin Thiessen, but used to play for ASU, immediately goes down to Tucson in his second game as a goal and an assist, so he got a bit of a Tucson ASU connection there. Johnny Walker, who, if you want a TLDR, was like the Clayton Keller of ASU, and I mean, like, Clayton Keller a few years ago, kind of overrated, but he can put up some good numbers, like that version of Clayton Keller. So I would have liked just, hey, our team's not very good right now. We're injury riddled. Let's get some former ASU guys. Throw them out there. Just why not? Because I like chaos and stupidity.
And I think we're going to see a lot of that from Bill Armstrong. We're going to see a lot of college, signings. Not a lot. Let me clarify. Unless they're like, oh, I don't want to play for Arizona, and they leave, like Nathan Smith could potentially do. I don't think that's the case. Because, and the reason I say this before a lot of people go, oh, why would Nathan Smith sign there? He would just leave and go in the offseason to become a free agent. Bill Armstrong specifically said that he contacted Nathan Smith before he made the trade to talk to him about it. And after the trade, he talked to Nathan Smith once again, and Nathan Smith said specifically that he was really excited to play here. He's really excited to become a Coyote, which is something you don't say if you're about to become a free agent in the offseason. Like, you just tell the team, hey, I'm not interested, like Jack Mcbain did with Minnesota. Say, hey, thank you for trying to pick me up, but I'm going to explore my options. And that's not what Nathan Smith said. He said, hey, I'm glad that you guys picked me up. I'm interested to take this opportunity, which points all the signs to me that he's going to probably get a contract once he's done with his Frozen Four tournament.
I'm pretty sure once the actual college season starts, you have to wait until your college season's over to sign, because that's what,
yes,
at the very least, that's what happened with Mcbain. I don't know why I couldn't remember his name for a second.
I don't know if you have to wait for your season to be over, but the second you put ink to paper with a NHL contract, you are no longer eligible to be in the NCAA. You are gone. You're not allowed to be there anymore.
Because you're no longer like student athlete or amateur or whatever it is.
Yeah, so the second you sign a pro career, you are no longer allowed to be in NCAA.
I actually forgot the point I was going to make.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Oh, no, I was just trying to get it in because sometimes you forget, so I'm like, oh, I could throw it in there real quick. But I think there's a lot to look forward to with the Coyotes right now. There we go. For a lot of people that don't know their history, because a lot of people kept also saying this team should move back to Quebec, which confused me because I don't think they know which team moved to Phoenix in the first place. They're getting some Blake Wheeler vibes, but Blake Wheeler said he wasn't gonna sign on the draft, whereas these guys are like, yeah, no, I'll sign here, and the moves would not have been made without that. What benefit do they get if they just want to walk in free agency anyway? It would basically be they would have to dislike the Coyotes organization or think it's funny, and that could also hurt their reputations. Like, no matter how, there's a lot of things. I've said it, I think 2 or 3 other issues we talked about. You have to twist a lot of things there to make it make sense. That
Yeah.
he would say he wants to be here just to not sign here.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. If he doesn't want to sign here and he doesn't want to sign in that was Winnipeg where he was previously, he would just tell them. He would just be like, "No, I'm not interested. I'm going to try my options in free agency." So it makes no sense to me why he wouldn't entertain the thought of signing a contract with Arizona. And
Plus all
that
that
just
valuable ice time.
yeah, well,
No one else can offer him that.
yeah, so you get value. Oh my goodness, sorry. I'm watching the Pittsburgh game. They've now scored 11 goals on Detroit. Yikes.
Oh my god! I thought
Yeah.
Detroit was supposed to be good.
Uh,
Is Nettie in goal?
I don't even know. I don't know. I'm just looking at the scoreboard. I'm scoreboard watching. Anyways,
It's Louis Domingue.
back from my ADHD trip there. Yeah, I see Nathan Smith playing some career here, but that once again shows the narrative that like everybody tries to dump on Arizona and why would you play in a 5,000 seat arena? Oh, you're going to go from the ice den in Scottsdale and then you're going to walk across the parking lot to go work out. Wow, how unprofessional. Blah, 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 blah. But notice once again, they're getting contracts done. They're getting people signed. Like, why is this? Because everybody wants to live in Arizona, hence why Galchenyuk didn't sell his house, hence why Dvorak didn't sell his house, because they realize that Arizona is a nice place to live. When you don't have to walk out into negative 20 degrees Celsius to go work out every 6 o'clock in the morning every single day, it's pretty damn nice. You know, you deal with the on-ice problems and hope that they get hammered out because the off-ice stuff is incredible. Arizona is incredible. Low taxes, right? That's the biz nasty talk there, right? Low taxes. You get, more money by just playing in Arizona. You have more opportunity by playing in Arizona. You have a great lifestyle. All the huge just things to do scene here. Like we've got insane bar community. We have insane gaming community. If you're, somebody who likes to participate in gambling and stuff like that. Like there's just massive, scenes here that make you want to stay and make you enjoy life here. And, so the whole narrative of like, just, they won't be able to get anybody, like Bill Armstrong once again showing why that's not the case with those two college athletes, which are pretty good assets. They look NHL ready from everything that I'm saying.
But even then, there's a couple of things there, I guess, just to kind of try to alley-oop on that point there, is first and foremost, I saw one tweet go out, and it almost immediately, aged, just milk in the sun, where it's like, they only have 4 NHL-level forwards. They had to specify that because there's other, prospects and whatnot, Michelli and them, that they didn't want to count with that, but hey, I wonder how they're going to get guys to sign here, and they are still an NHL franchise. You can make all the memes. I've made memes before. Whenever they announced the ASU thing, I was like, it's actually fitting as they're working their way on the ice to being an NHL level team. They can do the same with their building. I made that joke too because it's funny, especially when we're being self-aware. But they're still an NHL level team, NHL contract, NHL money, NHL ice time that no one else can afford to give you because we are still in the basement. We're who's going to be the Mikhail Bodker, the Martin Hansel, who's going to be these next big core pieces? We need to give you some ice time. We need to figure that out. So you're always going to have that. And then another thing, I'm a very, very simple man. I think you've known me well long enough to know that I'm keeping things simple. These people just don't know how temporary facilities work, how construction works. They are trying to finalize the deal with Tempe. Why would you spend a bunch of unnecessary money, which could tie up money and assets you want to put into that Tempe arena, into temporary solutions right now, immediately get it constructed, when there is still that small level of uncertainty? You got to deal with A, B, and C first. You're dealing with that, and then on top of that, they're paying the rent and everything up front for ASU. They're adding on their amenities and the locker rooms and whatnot, their training facilities to ASU as well. They were getting all that figured out and dealt with. Do you really think the training facilities in Scottsdale were their number even for priority at that point. It comes down to they've had a year to get everything done, and they've been primarily focusing where it should be, rebuilding the actual on-ice product, as well as reaching out to different brand partners. I know Javier Gutierrez said that there are different brand partners that now that they're going to Tempe are actually willing to deal with them because they didn't really see the value out in Glendale, but there it's going to be a really nice market where it's booming and just they had their ducks in a row for all the correct things you should be focusing on. I legitimately don't think the guys are going to care that, oh my God, this old office building is where we work out for
Yeah.
6 months, one season, and maybe two. I don't think they're gonna care because at that point, it's probably gonna give some guys like kind of a more simple, chill feel, which a lot of people like the Arizona hockey market for. It's not a very demanding market. It's very much laid back. You can just kind of play your game, but it's gonna give some of these college kids kind of some nostalgic. Oh, I get to basically just go from this setup to the same exact setup over here, and it's chill, and you're probably gonna build a lot more chemistry that way anyway. It's all how you want to look at it. And you could tell people want to be cynical and, oh, they're not a real NHL franchise because, oh my God, there's a temporary thing going on over here that they're actually trying to find a temporary solution for the temporary problem. These people they want to be negative. So that's why I laugh at them. That's why I make fun of them. That's why I should say it more often. Coyotes fans, just stop engaging with them. Just drop an LOL and just let them get mad. Just let them have fun. Troll. Let them little troll. Go watch my reading tweets ASU edition video because it was just people that were so big mad about.
Yeah, don't take them seriously. Just troll. That's what I did to all the Sportsnet stuff too. I kept dropping the photo of Austin Matthews in the ASU sweater, just to mess with them. Like just do that. Just mess with them. Don't even try to engage. Like just mess with them.
You're not going to change their mind. Have your fun because at the end of the day, one thing they can never change, and they're struggling to cope with this, is the NHL would rather play in a college arena than in Quebec City or Houston, and you cannot say that is not an objective fact. Cope.
Yep. Two quick things I want to clarify, and then we're going to move off of hockey and move on to most likely baseball real quick. There's not a lot going on in baseball because it's still, getting back up and running. But we do have some important things there. The two quick things I'm going to say, the constant, I don't know where this narrative came from. I think it was Friedman who, I don't know where his source is. Everybody keeps saying, oh, it's a 5,000 seat arena and they're cutting out 2,000 seats. There's only going to be 3,000 seats in the arena. This is not the case. Gutierrez has already made the claim is going to be 4,700 seats. You're going to lose a small fraction to make a tunnel that goes onto the ice from their annex, which is on the outside of the building, which they are going to be building off the building. They're not building in the building and taking seats out or anything like that. And before you make the question of, well, what's the difference from 3,000 to 5,000? Well, with lower bowl seats, I know you guys just sit in the nosebleeds and all you think is like the cheap prices. The difference of 1,000 seats in the lower bowl is quite a lot. If you take $150 and multiply it by 1,000, that's a lot of money that you are adding on every single game. So please stop spinning that narrative of wherever you heard that from. Like, it is 4,700. It will be 4,700. That is what they're going for. Stop saying 3,000. That is a big difference. Amen. And
pass me the rock. Pass me the rock real quick. All right. I know exactly where that came from.
Passing you the rock.
So anyway, that came from I think it was the original announcement. I don't remember if it was the Craig article or the Craig Morgan article or if it was one of the ones like ESPN or SportsCenter or whatever. They said for this annex, they could go down to as low as 3,400 seats. They were still trying to figure out the details of how they were going to build it, but it was most likely going to only drop down like 300 to 500 seats. That was what it actually said. But like I said, people want to be angry. They want to be negative. They want to be mad. It's like, oh, this is a joke. They're going down to 3,400 because they saw that number cited and didn't actually read. Like, if you actually read the article, they said it could, but it was more likely to go down to like 47 or maybe like 45. Do you really think that they were going to go the least optimal route and take. Well, so what is that? That's 1,600 seats. Is that 30%? Is that 30% of the capacity or 25%? You think they're going to take out that much of the capacity and ASU is going to be cool with that? Like, do you think that's going to work?
I'm doing some math on the calculator right now. So 1,600 times 150, if you sold the seats for 150, that's $240,000 that you're taking away every single game by taking out those seats. So,
and
yeah.
Gutierrez already said the tickets are going to be, they're going to keep the student section, which hopefully, if my wife kept her ASU ID, I'll get to go to a couple of games and not have to spend an arm and a leg. But they're going to keep that section, but everything else, because it's all premium seating. I remember where your tickets were, that game you invited me to. It's about 13 rows, so they are all premium seats. They're going to be, I think, a little bit above league average. He said on his Newsmakers Week interview at 98.7 FM, where he said they're all going to be, I think it's between 130 and like 160, if not a little bit more. And he even had to come out and say, look, we're not trying to forget about our fans that usually buy the Upper Bowl tickets. Just this is the reality of how we're going to have to make this work for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
That's why they're saying we don't really see much of a financial, like, they're not anticipating a huge loss from going to Gila to this, because more advertising dollars, higher ticket prices, they will sell out every night. They average over 11,000, and this is one of the worst seasons in franchise history, and they're on the threat of moving again. Yes, objectively, they could still move. They could be announced in a week. All right, I will give you that. There's your objective, disclaimer. But all of that negativity, plus the Katie Strang articles that for the most part were not even like properly sourced. It was just a source says, and I hate when people take those as fact. It's literally, I can go ask my dad right now, what do you think about KFC? And he can say, oh, they crap in the chicken. Oh, a source said they crap in their chicken. That's how easy it is to do that. Well, it's misleading. It's 100% misleading.
I'm so glad you brought up the Katie Strang thing, because that's actually exactly what my second point was going to be about. Was people were talking about, I saw this on, I think it was Steve Dangle or one of those ones, one of the Canadians ones, where they're just like, how does the numbers, Mason, what do the numbers mean? Like, because they saw the Katie Strang article and they're like, oh my goodness, look, the Coyotes are only pulling in 11,000 people at Gila River, and to make it operation at the cost or the profit margins that they have currently at Gila River, it was something like the ticket prices are going to have to be like $300 at ASU just to keep up with the profit margins that they're making currently at Gila River. Okay, what they don't talk about is the model that you're putting on there is the operational costs of Gila River. The building is a lot smaller. Your operational costs at the ASU arena is smaller. Wow. When you have less going on there, you don't need to fork out as much money. Like, am I crazy here? Am I making sense? Am I making sense here? Am I figuring this out? Like, whoa, when you're in a smaller building, you don't pay as much for operation costs. What?
I was actually going to loop back around to that, like, to properly elaborate that again, because I touched on it, and then like you took me touching on that and said, nah, give me the rock, and just dunked it. Because it's purposefully misrepresenting, purposefully wanting to be negative, making it look as bad as possible, because operational costs, like you said, they're going to be lower. All right, I used to work in the operations department at the Gila River Arena. I know my dad used to work there too as well. There's your disclosure. I can tell you right now, the crew is not going to need to be the size it is at Gila River Arena, even the full-time versus part-time, because it's a multi-use, multi-purpose 5,000 seat arena. They're not going to need the amount of staff. That's one department, let alone engineering, let alone this or that. I think ASU has their own separate engineering that would also just go over that goes over the different stadiums, meaning I don't think Arizona has to touch that, or if they do, it's a very small portion of it.
Yep.
You're more advertising dollars going to you because less people want to deal with you at Gila River. So it's like, your profits are right there.
And once again, let me reiterate: go watch an Go watch an Arizona game. Tell me, how full's the bowl at Gila River Arena at most nights? Right? When you see 11,000 people coming up to these games at Gila River Arena, More times than not, it's the upper bowl. Prices are a lot cheaper in the upper bowl. This is all premium seating. It's all lower bowl seats. If you're telling me that you have a $40 nosebleed seat versus the person that's down below paying $150, right? What's the math on that? That's a 5x profit on that, on an individual seat. And you're telling me
$110 extra, an extra $100 per ticket, just to simplify it even further. And that's going low. Let's bring it lower. That's an extra $100 a ticket, and it's they won't even fill this arena. 11,000 out of, I think, for hockey with standing room only, I think it's like a little over 17, but for standard hockey it should be about 16.5 at Gila River Arena. They are averaging 11,000. Again, I need to reiterate, one of the worst seasons in history. Nobody thought they were going to be good. Louis Eriksson was the highlight because we all laughed at that acquisition.
Yeah, it was a good meme.
Just to give you an idea, I love that meme, by the way. That was the best $300 I ever spent on a jersey. But, but it's just, these people are so disingenuous. And like, I used to like Steve Dangle, but then he's like going off on just a TLDR, the rant. Obviously, full disclosure, it's a paraphrase. They're not a real team.
No, wait.
Teams make better.
Wait. There you go. I got it for you.
Junior teams have higher attendance.
I can go down go down the road and I'll watch an OHL game with more capacity. Yes, we know. It's temporary.
So what's the ticket price? I got
temporary.
It was like 2 or 3 years ago. That's how long ago it was. I got a beanie and 3 tickets to the Tucson Roadrunners. I still have $18 on my account, by the way, for 1 ticket. All right. So yeah, I think that convention center holds, like, I think it's just a little over or a little under 10,000. Oh, so basic numbers. So they're gonna lose money. Tucson makes more than Arizona. No, that's not how that works, because the different levels of competition, also the different varying prices. The tickets I got for like 18, 20, 25 a piece are essentially a little bit worse than what the ASU seats are going to be, because they're a little higher up, more rows, obviously. But just basic math, junior level teams, except for maybe playoffs, I don't know how it would work there, but just a regular season junior AHL, you are not generating $160 on average, because that's the average for an NHL ticket.
That's what you pay to go watch Sidney Crosby.
It's like, they can average more people. They're not averaging more money. They are just not.
So, sorry, this is probably going to be a long episode. We got a lot of stuff that we're going to talk off of our chest here because of Arizona hockey that we've been bundling up. All right, so next episodes will be a little bit more mixed with our content. That's not just only hockey. I have one more thing to say, and once again, people go back to that Katie Strang article and how she talks about how they operate their AHL team too, and they're doing the same thing down the AHL. The reason why they were in kind of a dispute with their payments, once again down there, is they felt like they're being taken advantage of. Just like how they were feeling in Glendale. The reason why they didn't pay wasn't because they didn't have the money. The reason why is it's called a negotiation tactic. They thought that they could sit out on payments, make them come back to the board and go, okay, we want our payments. Let's work out a 2-3 year deal at Gila River Arena. It's a calculation. They failed on it. They went quickly, shortly thereafter, went, okay, we're going to go to ASU. The same thing is happening down at the TCC, Tucson Convention Center. They were promised that they were going to get in-arena upgrades. If you've ever been to the TCC, I like it down in Tucson. It's in a great area, actually, the TCC. It's right downtown. They refixed the Tucson downtown area. It's actually a lot better. It was real rough 10 years ago. Nowadays, it's a lot better.
Nice now. It's good. It's nice now. It's basically a mini Phoenix.
Yeah, it is. It's like a micro Phoenix. And the reason that they've been having disputes, and Mr. Gutierrez even said this while they were talking about, I think he was getting interviewed about the ASU arena, is they were promised upgrades that Tucson has not upheld yet. And if you've gone to the TCC, it is an old building. It is very old. It's like, what, 80s or 90s, I think. It is nowhere near nice. I'll be real with you. I think there's like 3 bathrooms. for boys and
They're in
girls.
weird areas too. There's
Yeah,
like
and
it's one off in the far corner, like
it's
where
like
the
it's like a
actual ice
U
surface
shape.
ends. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
like a
like
U
a
shape, and
horseshoe.
it's like all the bathrooms are down here. It's not good. It needs some love. You don't have any really ability to broadcast very well. Like there's no like upper area. Now, granted, it is AHL. You're not going to need like fancy broadcasting or anything like that. But look at the San Diego Gulls. Look at how well they're doing. They have a good building. They have a good fan base because of the success that they're able to push. And when you are promised upgrades and you aren't getting them, what are you going to do? Just keep paying them, or are you going to start fighting back with negotiation tactics?
And right
As
here, I need to jump in.
Yeah,
You forgot one little, not like, oh, you forgot, but it's like you didn't mention this one other part that also strengthens Arizona's case because since people want to be like, oh, they're poorly run down there. Uh, Gutierrez even said himself, it was in that article talking about the ASU thing with Craig Morgan, because they brought it up kind of seemingly randomly. He mentioned that the ticket fees are some of the highest in the AHL because that original agreement was to have the renovations and that money to go to that.
yep,
That is literally the main reason. So they're like, yeah, we are committed to keeping the Roadrunners not only in Arizona but in Tucson. Tucson's rallied around them. They've done pretty well with the Sugar Skulls as well. Tucson's not a
yeah,
bad market. I
no,
hate the college team, but I embrace the Roadrunners and I embrace
and
that market and still Arizona. But they have actual like standing there. Same thing with the Coyotes. City of Glendale wanted to strong arm a 20-year agreement. That was cited by multiple sources, including I think Gutierrez as well. I think it was him or another executive with the Coyotes. And the City of Glendale were the ones that originally reneged on a 15-year agreement. They
ripped it up.
tore it up. So it's oh yeah, yes. The city of Glendale had every right to be upset that the Coyotes were not paying their bills. Yes,
Yep,
Marullo should have been paying his bills because it was a very stupid mistake. When you go against the government, as soon as the tax man has a case against you, you messed up. But with that disclosure out of the way, with giving you that concession, they soured the relationship themselves, and
yeah,
Marullo very clearly saw it as it's not worth like being here for 5 more years, and he was trying to put his money where it should be, going to Tempe. And then as soon as everything hit the fan, checks were sent to the state, to the
yeah,
city, money was paid. The Coyotes can't pay their bills? No. They chose not to because you do not write, what was it? It was 1.6 or $2 million worth of checks. You do
yeah.
not write that and not have the funds, because if those checks would have bounced, the league would have had to have stepped in, and it would have been announced right there that they're in talks to move to Quebec or Houston, because that would have actually been an embarrassment to the league. Everything they've been
Yep.
saying is an embarrassment to the league is not. Look, I know I'm a weirdo. I love watching like YouTube videos about like corporate politics and stuff like that because it's really interesting. If you
Yep.
just pay attention to it, you look at this and you're like, that's what's going on. They're not going
Yep.
to tell you because why would they? That's not good business. That gives the enemy or who you're negotiating,
The
whatever the
opposition.
terminology you want to use, your opposition. Thank you. That's a
Hmm.
very good terminology. That gives your opposition political capital, whatever context you want, because obviously you have capital for politics, for business, whatever. It gives them more of that and takes it away from you, makes you look bad. Of course. Of course they are not going to say, oh yeah, no, we just didn't want to pay our bills. Because do you really think that they just a clerical error? Oh, we thought we were sending the checks, but they just didn't go through. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No.
and so I guess we're getting into the weeds of this. I was going to try to keep this short, but first episode we'll make it a fun one. We're already
All out.
we're an hour and 20 minutes into this, but we're going all the way, baby. We're making this a big shebang for the first episode. It won't be as long usually, hopefully. We'll try to keep it around 40 minutes to an hour for future ones, but we got so much stuff to talk about, so we're talking about it. I want to talk about the financials of the Coyotes real quick because that's another argument everybody always tries to make against them. I don't think it was a clerical error with that. That was a negotiation tactic, and that is damn well why they did not pay Glendale. It was a negotiation tactic that got foiled because Glendale immediately ran over to Katie Strang and started crying. They're paying us, crying about it.
They got the tax man. You can't.
Yeah.
They got Al Capone. All right, the tax man's the only man I fear. That's the only man I fear.
Yep. So, two quick things I wanted to say. Back in the middle of the lockdown, they did not pay bonuses to players like I think it was Derek Stepan and maybe another couple other people.
And per diems as well.
Per diems. Okay. It could have been legitimately that he didn't have the money, right? Because remember, this is a man who has $15 billion in assets. That is not money. It's not like he has that money lying around. That is assets. And when your assets are not making you money because you're in the middle of a lockdown, it makes it really hard. When also all those assets are locked down. Nobody's going to the casino in Reno to go gamble when you're in the middle of the lockdown. Okay? And guess what? That building still needs upkeep. That building needs a bunch of money, right? So this man was taking on a bunch of debt during the middle of the lockdown. It would not shock me if he was struggling going, holy crap, it's either I lose my building in Reno or I wait a couple weeks on sending my per diems to my players. Yeah, it sucks. And I do think it could have been a clerical error there too. I think that's what they used as that there too. It probably
possible.
Was.
His first year as owner, it's possible, but
yeah,
it's much more likely what you said.
And another thing to play devil's advocate for his side is I believe John Chaika had left the organization maybe 2 months, 3 months after that problem happened, and if I'm an owner and John Chaika's handling the most of the operation sides, because remember, he wasn't just GM, he was president of hockey operations as well. And then Aaron Cohen was the CEO or CFO? CEO. I think it was CEO. Maybe. I don't know. I just know that John Chaika took the GM side and the hockey operations side. That guy leaves, all of a sudden you may miss out on some payments that you didn't know about because you haven't found your suitor yet. Remember, Bill Armstrong at the time was not in office. He was still searching for a general manager. So there is something to say there that there could have been some clerical errors there. If I had to guess, Mr. Morello's good with his money. He's not that dumb. I think he probably was struggling because we were in the middle of something that was completely unprecedented times. That would be my assumption with that. With the arena thing, with the money not happening with the arena thing, that was negotiation. And lastly, once again, if the man doesn't have money, why did he spend $25 million on an annex and then also put 3 years of rent in advance?
And then on top of that, right there, you actually just strengthened, I don't know if you realize it, you just strengthened the clerical error argument because John Chaika, GM and president of Hockey Ops, he actually left the organization right around when they went into the bubble, and that's when a lot of those payments were missed. So if anything, even though I still think it has more to do with when the government says X, Y, Z are not allowed to operate, so you still obviously people got to get paid to go to work to maintain stuff. Where a lot of times employers were paying people to stay home because you couldn't really do much. A lot of money was just being lost. You have money going out, nothing coming in. So if anything, I still think that's most likely that. But it also strengthens the argument that it could have legitimately just been a clerical error because it was wrapped up within a week. He had that fixed and everyone got what they were entitled to. So it's just look. Did things happen? Yeah. But did anything happen that was shady or a sign that everything was crumbling? No. Because literally, if you look at just very basic economics right now, children, are you seeing how all the prices on everything has gone up like skyrocketing to ridiculous rates? That's because the amount of money companies lost in 2020, they're trying to get back immediately. And that's bleeding into 2022, potentially 2023.
Just remember, people,
saying.
Those gas prices that you're paying right now only spiked for a short period of time because of the conflicts. And all of a sudden that oil, the barrels that they're importing are to the United States are back to the same price that they were before the conflict. Yet what you're paying is flatlines. It's because essentially the oil companies are locking in their profits from what they lost from previous couple of years. Unfortunately, that is the sad reality of the gas prices that we're dealing with right now and what we're seeing with other things.
Pretty much, if you can get a scapegoat, it's a virus's fault. It's inflation. If you can put a scapegoat to it, companies take advantage of it.
Yeah,
right there. Just saying. Anyway, that got a little too on the financial side.
Political side. We're not trying to push. We're all sports here, baby. Doesn't matter what political
sports and numbers, and that backed up by numbers. So we're gonna go ahead and give it a pass, but we'll censor a lot of it.
All right, I think we're good to finally get off the hockey talk, the honky tonk.
Hockey talk.
Let's get into baseball. Ketel Marte looking at potential extensions. What are your thoughts on this? I think this is, for me, myself, good. Do it.
Not you, but a different Richard on Twitter. I actually kind of agree with his mindset, so I'll just paraphrase what he said. That's probably going to be the first universally liked move that the D-backs could do to kind of rally the fans back and show them there is something. Like they're going to do something. They're trying to get their team back on track, because the rumor is it'll be a 5-year deal. It'll take him till he's 33. Please put him back at second base. I didn't think he was doing that bad at center field until I saw some of the advanced numbers. I'm not going to pretend I understand them, but when people that are talking about them and presenting them like they do understand them are saying this means bad, put him back at second base. I think Varsho plays catcher in center field. You have people that can go play in the field, so replace that, put him back at second base, give him that extension. You need to have a franchise face. Look, I know the era that I grew up in was a little weird because I liked Eric Burns and Steven Drew, but I really couldn't tell you who the actual face was supposed to be at that point. But if you want people to rally around, you got to have a Paul Goldschmidt, a Devin Booker, a Shane Doan. You have to have a lightning rod. You have to have someone to say, we know this guy isn't going anywhere. So I think that would be good. Just don't do the classic overpaying thing. Just do the standard overpaying thing. Just do that part.
I think monetarily you can overpay. Don't put a lot of term onto it. I think 5 years is good. I think that's the right amount, and I think that's a guy who you want to stick around. All signs point to good guy, keep him around.
Now, off baseball, because no one watches baseball anymore. Except for me, because I like having a notepad. I'm going to say beer, but I never drink beer, but I want to be American right now. So I got a beer in one hand, a notepad in the other, passed out on my recliner watching baseball. That's the American dream, baby.
Yeah. Never take any time off of work until I need 6 days off to die. That's my American dream.
I'll sleep when I'm dead. I'll sleep. So, go ahead and talk about Devin Booker.
Yes.
Devin, I do know I do this a lot, but if I had a controversial opinion, I do believe disclosure is proper. I thought he was overrated for the longest time. He's on a bad team, he's putting up big numbers, he's the only good player on a bad team. He's probably not elite, he's probably just very good. He is on a different level for at least the last 2.5, 3, maybe even 3.5 years. He, in my opinion, has to be at least a top 15, if not slightly higher, current NBA player, and he absolutely should be in the MVP conversation. I have a statistic right here. I want to read it off. So, players in NBA history averaging 25, 5, and 5 with an 800 record or better: Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, LeBron James a couple of times, Steph Curry, Harden, and Giannis. All of them went on to win MVPs that season. The only other player, Devin Booker, this year. Yep. If there isn't something right there to show how valuable he is, it is normally the best player on the best team. I understand there are some flaws with that. Yes, there is a legitimate argument that if you take Devin Booker off the team, they're still a very good team. But at the same time, I do not think they are. It's Chris Paul and Devin Booker, obviously, but if you take one of them off the team, they are not a championship contender. They're a very good team, but they're not a contender. I think that should be more than enough logical reasoning. On top of that, he has a lot of really good statistics to back it up. Casually dropping a 49-point game the other night, on the team that were the first team to 50 wins, and they held on to that for like what 25, 23 or 25, more than 20 days. They were the first team to clinch a playoff spot. They clinched first in the West. I think there were only 2 or 3 other teams that clinched a playoff spot by the time the Suns had done all of that. Look, case closed. He should at least be top 3 in consideration. Does he need to win it? Well, I would like that because I think Nash won it with a little bit less, even though I love Steve Nash. But I think Booker right now probably better than Nash was at least one of those 2 years he won. So he should be a finalist.
Yeah, I think Booker definitely is shown to be that he probably is going to outshine Nash for that. What most valuable player that the Suns have ever seen on their team.
Best son of all time. If he lifts that trophy over his head, like I said, I love Steve Nash. I'll forever love Steve Nash. Devin Booker will be the king of Arizona. You can't if we get that title, especially if they end up trying to make like another run or two in the next 3 years after that, forget about it. The Cardinals can win a Super Bowl. The Coyotes can win back-to-back cups. Devin Booker is still the man in the Valley. If that happens.
I agree. Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Yeah, I think so. Especially if the major 4 sports, he definitely will go down in history as probably the greatest Arizona athlete ever if he can lift that championship over his head. I have one more question.
Yes,
basketball
sir.
Related.
Basketball. Let's play it.
Do you think Chris Paul sticks around long term?
Well, he has. I think it was a 4-year deal he just signed. This year is guaranteed. I think it's half of no, it's a 3-year deal. The exact details are escaping me, but this year fully guaranteed. Next year, I think it's half the season is guaranteed. The other year after that, not guaranteed at all. They theoretically can cut it and it's just fine. I think if they keep up this level of play, if they keep this up and if they win a championship and they at least make it to, let's say, the Western Conference Finals the year after, they still show they're relevant, I don't see why he wouldn't. Even if they end up not picking up an option and he re-signs for a little bit cheaper, I don't really know. That would be up to Chris Paul, obviously, but I don't see why he wouldn't stick around if this team is still firing on all gears because while Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, that core brought them to playoff contention, Chris Paul was the piece that helped bring it all. Him and Monty Williams, excuse me. I don't know why Monty Jones used to work for the Coyotes. I apologize.
Monty Williams. Wait, no.
Monty Williams are 2 of the most integral pieces to the entire ship being where it's at.
I agree. All right. Well, is there any
want to talk Rattlers for 5 minutes?
I don't know much about Rattlers, but if you want to go on some spicy takes of venture into this territory on yours,
yes,
so absolutely go for it.
Watch the Rattlers, okay? We have a trash football team in Glendale that's never won anything, that will never win anything. I only love them because I'm a hopeless buffoon that grew up in this state and will never give up on my teams. Gosh darn it! But the Arizona Rattlers have gone to back-to-back United Bulls. They, after having a sluggish start in that week, their week 1, but I think it's technically week 2. The IFL is really weird with how they do their weeks, and the Rattlers almost never play on the opening weekend. But with their first matchup against Duke City, it was a rematch of the semifinals last year. Sluggish start. The defense clamped down in the second half. Drew Powell and the offense got back to where they needed to be and blew them out. I think the final score was 50-28. No points allowed in the second half. That's how well that defense played. And indoor football is designed to be a high-scoring affair. And Duke City is not a bad team. They are not. Look. I really need to confirm if Dan Bickley's story is true, that back in the 90s or whatever it was, the Rattlers advertised, if you want to watch playoff football, you watch us. All right, but I'm going to go ahead and say that's headcanon, because if you want to watch playoff football, if you want to watch an actual MVP candidate quarterback, because Drew Powell won the league MVP last year, by the by, if you want to watch actual elite level football, go down to the Footprint Center, you enter that snake pit, you buy whatever stupid merchandise there are, and you get down with this football team. Why are we not talking more about this? I like talking. Get down there. It's one of the most unique experiences. People say it about hockey all the time. Live, it's a different beast. All right. My first ever game, I think it was around 2012 when they were in the middle, actually starting their three-peat dynasty with the Latin Laser, Nick Davila, Tyson Poots, Maurice Purify, all those wonderful offensive players. When they were starting that, the atmosphere was ridiculous. I had only heard about them kind of in passing. It's such a fun place to be. Go watch Rattlers football. They play again on Monday.
And they got sexy merch. Do they still are they still putting the games on YouTube as well?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
I think it's on the Indoor Football League channel, but definitely check out their games. If we, on the YouTube version of this, we need to leave a link or something to the IFL channel so that way people can watch. Even tickets are also cheap. I bought 2 season tickets this year for $200. It's 100, well, a little bit under $100 per ticket. So it's beyond affordable. It's really entertaining. They've gone, like I said, back-to-back United Bowls. They have 6 championships in their history, 5 of those being Arena Bowls when they were in the AFL, and their first year in the IFL in 2017, they won. Look, I can praise them all day. They got some things to work on. Sure, whatever. We're Arizona sports. I'm used to disappointment, but I'm very, very seldomly disappointed by the Arizona Rattlers. There, I got to talk about Rattlers on my podcast.
For sure. And if you're not a basketball guy and you don't want to watch what's going on with the Suns right now, but you want to support a winner and not be a bandwagoning loser, Rattlers are where it's at. So, for sure. And once again, super easy access to tickets. Prices are cheap, and you can also watch them on YouTube, and there's no subscription or anything that you have to pay for. So, definitely give them a watch.
Make sure to rise for your Rattlers. God, I'm so pumped. I feel like Ron Wolfley, except for Rattlers football is real football. God, can you dig it? Clip that. That needs to be the first clip. That needs to be the first thing going.
I'm gonna get a soundboard. That'll be on the soundboard.
I'm the Ron Wolfley of indoor football. Any closing thoughts? Any last couple things you got?
We got one long episode here. This is about an hour and 30 plus minutes. So I think first episode, this is gonna be great. We'll try to get some clips out for shortened sections of what we talk about on this podcast onto the YouTube channel. Overall, I think we had a great discussion. Maybe a little bit long on the Coyotes side, but it's going to be a little Coyotes weighted on this podcast. It won't be as weighted as it was today, but we had a lot to get off our chests, specifically with the people north of the border, the top hat of America. We need to discuss some things with them. But
pretty much the best way to describe it, go to my YouTube channel, AZ Sports Guy. If you want to kind of get, it's going to be a little more well-balanced than that, but if you want to kind of get an idea for where the balance is at versus like D-backs baseball, Arizona Coyotes hockey, go look at that and what videos I make, how many about different sports, and that's kind of going to generally translate over here. Mainly because we're primarily hockey guys, and I don't care if you're not a hardcore baseball fan, you can't tell me sitting down for an afternoon with a beer in your hand and just relaxing at a ballpark is not a fun afternoon. Like, we're going to talk some D-backs.
Beautiful sight lines. Buildings getting a little old, but beautiful. I love going to baseball stadiums. They have incredible feeling to them when you get to sit down in that seat and just see the grand structure that you get to look at and say this is premier North American sports.
It's a tear to your eye. It's hard to describe. I'll never be as hardcore into baseball as I am into hockey. I will live and breathe hockey. Ask my wife the amount of times I've come home from work and just gone right in here to work on hockey-related content. But baseball is like a close second because, man, it's just relaxing. It's just, it's peace. It is just bliss. Unless your team's down by 6 runs and you're like, you know what? I think it's okay to go home and I'll go play Skyrim for the 37th time.
No need to stand for the stretch because I'll be already home, baby.
All right. It's been long enough. I'm pretty sure I've sweat through my hockey jersey right here.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. Remember, if you want to view any of our episodes on any podcasting platform, we have links down below. So make sure to follow us on whatever channel that you listen to your podcasts on. Give us a like and a follow. We're a small channel, but we got big goals, big ambitions,
Big hearts.
big
Big
hearts.
old hearts that beat for losing sports teams. But we love it! We love it!
All right. See you guys later.
My name is AZ Sports Guy, and I have a small erection.